We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. This is one of the podcast days. I did a gym workout before this, so I feel like whenever I looked, I was like, "Oh, you look tired, buddy."
No, I feel you. It's like 85 degrees in Cincinnati right now, so I've been outside ever since work ended today, and I do
I worked.
feel.
I am a work from home boy now, which I got a promotion, which is cool. But I worked outside today. I mean, I was just like sitting on the porch working. That is the dream.
I'm telling you right now, I've been working from home for 4 years. It is amazing. I am so grateful for it every day. You're going to love it. You're going to love it when it's summertime and you're like, you know what?
Mhm.
I'm just going to enjoy a couple hours outside, get the sun glare, monitors, and everything. You're going to be all set. It is a dream come true. So awesome for you to experience work from home life. Also awesome. We're getting close to the NFL draft. I can't wait to get to it in just a moment. But some contract extension news and T. Higgin news, kind of. He talked to the media. He had his camp, his youth camp over the weekend, and good on T. Higgins. He was in town, and he was asked, obviously, kind of expectations going into 2024. You're going to be playing with the Bengals or not? And he pretty much said, expectations. He's going to be playing for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2024. We've talked about it plenty. I've always kind of felt like the Bengals front office kind of held the leverage when you think about other teams, what other wide receivers are making, when you look at a loaded wide receiver class in the NFL draft. And the Bengals think highly of T. Higgins. And I know, the argument is they think highly of him. Why won't they give him a contract extension? Takes two people to get a deal done, and there's a lot more behind the scenes. We just don't know the number. But Devontae Smith, obviously making news today, getting his contract extension, $75 million, $51 million guaranteed for 3 years. And I know the first overall reaction is, oh, look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They paid their quarterback. They paid two wide receivers. Why can't the Cincinnati Bengals? For me personally, I'll get to my argument in just a moment, but what did you think of that in comparison to what T. Higgins and the Cincinnati Bengals front office could do?
I think the NFL sees Devonta Smith and T. Higgins similarly. There's going to be some guys who like one more than the other, but I think if you took a consensus, they would both come out around the same range. I think Devonta Smith left a little bit of like total money on the table, but not a ton. I think he could have pushed for like 28. I mean, look at what Ridley got by hitting the open market. Just imagine Jacksonville having a shot at, well, they're gonna might have a shot next year at T, but like imagine having the shot at one of these guys. They didn't pay Ridley, but I think the NFL views these guys as better than Ridley. It's been like 4 years since Ridley was up at their level. Um, to go with that, though, you got to look at the guaranteed money, like you mentioned, and that is probably more guaranteed money than the Bengals are offering. Probably, we don't know.
Really?
You, I mean, 51 million. I mean, he got what was it, 66-70% of that contract guaranteed.
And that's what you look at David Malagueta's clients. They normally get around the 60-ish percentage, close to probably
Mm-hmm.
maybe 70% of that guaranteed of the contract. Yeah, I guess I would be surprised if the Bengals, because I feel like that would be a fair deal for T. Higgins, $51 million guaranteed, 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
75 million. I would do it today.
And I
That
think he's pushing 3 for 80 or 3 for 80 something like around that. Like he's it's obvious he's trying to look out and make the most money he possibly can, which I'm for.
he should.
And the Bengals are not willing to pay it. Like that is why we're at the standstill for the most part, other than maybe the guaranteed money. But he's probably pushing for the upper end of what he can make. And Devonta Smith, was I'm not going to say less worried about that, but maybe he wanted his guarantees more, or maybe he wanted to stay in Philadelphia really badly because he has something going on there. And T doesn't have the same amount of ties to Cincinnati, or maybe that's just the value of what, I mean, I know T grew up in a real bad situation when he was a child. So they talked about it at the NFL draft, which was stupid, but
Yeah.
they only tell bad stories at the NFL draft. They don't tell about how successful these guys have made it. They got to tell the sob story. I mean, every single you learn every parent that has died, but which I want to stop. But anyway, grew up in a bad situation, so I 100% I understand wanting to make the most that you can in your situation where you finally made this. So he might want to squeeze out the extra couple of million because he knows how much further that can go, or whatever. I don't know. Maybe Devonta Smith had a similar thing. I know more about T. Higgins. Just saying, the values maybe aren't the exact same. I would say that T is probably pushing for more total money than 25 million per year. I'm guessing he's going to try to get as close to 30 as he can. And you see Ridley make, I think, 28 per year, and he could probably make that if he hits the open market. Like, that's, I think, where we are. And he probably wants to get around the same guarantees, if not a little bit more. But in my brain, I feel like he might just be pushing for more total money than that. But I don't know. I could be wrong.
See, for me, it would just be the guarantees. I think that's
so?
that's the biggest thing, because if you
I
were
guess
to
we'll
tell,
find out eventually.
oh, we'll know in about a year. But if you were to tell me right now, hey, look, here's what the Bengals have on the table, and this is something that they probably offered even, in the conversations last year, of what it could possibly be, because it's only going to get higher for these wide receivers. But for me, 51 every day, 51 million guaranteed. Yes, let's go.
I'd pay that too. I feel like it's just stuck about what I'd pay because I just give him whatever he wanted for the most part. But yeah,
it's not my
if
check.
you're willing to pay the 50, if you're willing to pay the 51 guaranteed, then I feel like yes,
but
they should be willing to get there. But who knows if they are?
But here's the thing, because I know a lot of people bring this up. I don't think the Bengals front office will do this, but hey, crazier things have happened. There's the conversation of, yeah, he's going to play on the $21 million because you don't want to sit out. And a lot of people are like, oh, what if T doesn't play hard? Or what if he thinks about it? T's going to be playing for his extension. He's going to want to ball out this year on a $21 million playing on the franchise tag. So I don't fear that. Health is always a concern for any athlete. Mm-hmm. You want him to stay healthy, and that's going to be the number one thing for T. Higgins. But overall, when I look at the contract extension, there's that conversation, well, what if the Cincinnati Bengals do a double tag? And if they were to do that, and this 21, it's going to be 20, it's going to be 20 plus next year. So that's almost the 51. Well, not you're missing a couple million in between, but you're getting close to that guaranteed of what a 3-year contract could have looked like. So I don't know. I think the double tag probably isn't in the cards for the Cincinnati Bengals front office. I don't think they'll do that, but you're going to give them 21 million this year. I don't know if you're that. I don't know how far off they are. I really do not know.
He goes for 1,400 yards. You tag him again?
Probably. I just said they probably won't. I'm like,
where's the mark though? Like 1,200. Like, because I feel like that's where the higher end of what you might expect if he stays healthy a whole season. Do you double tag? Do you tag and try to trade? Do you just let him walk? Because I feel like letting him walk is obviously like
that's bad.
Taboo. It's taboo. Yeah, don't do it.
Don't do it.
None of it matters. If they win a championship, it turns into like,
I don't care. I'd be like, great, T. It was fun.
Any type of bad move you make when you win a championship doesn't matter. Look at the Chiefs. They're calling Brett Veach the greatest GM of all time. He traded all those picks for Tony and Sky Moore, and he's like, make it Patrick Mahomes play with Travis Kelce and probably the other producers of New Heights as his wide receivers. So.
Oh my gosh, that's their next wide receiver joining the Kansas City Chiefs soon. Goodness,
Jason Kelce's next
give me a Chris Jones. Give me a Chris Jones right now.
Chris Jones sat out like 6 games because they couldn't get a deal done. It's like, greatest GM of all time. Yeah.
No, seriously. So overall, you kind of feel like, and I know there are the stats and the comparisons of how long, Smith's been on the field versus Higgins and health and wide receiver. And I know you just put a tweet out before we started recording when talking about T. Higgins and kind of.
It's like throwing lobs.
Yeah. Well, I just, I like to see it. You like to throw it and then record and then go back to see what the reaction was. Or this is my favorite on NFL Twitter. Sometimes you tweet it. I will do this. I will tweet it. I don't do hot takes. I don't like that stuff. I just tweet kind of my thoughts of what I have going on. But I'll put something out there and I'm like, this is a little spicy. And then I know a lot of people are going to react to it and I never go back to it. That's my number one lesson. If you not to like get an engagement or anything like that, I just sometimes I'm like, some people probably won't agree with this take, but it's something that I believe in, and I know and I start to see the reaction in the comments, like, probably not going back to that one because you know how NFL Twitter can be. But no, I thought it was a good tweet, and just kind of talking about the wide receiver T. Higgins is because. Look, here's the thing that happens every time that a top athlete on the team, they're not agreeing on the contract extension. And we saw it with Jesse Bates. I think fans start to feel a certain way towards T. Higgins, let him walk, get him traded, get JJ. It's not going to happen. Justin Jefferson, it's not going to happen. And I think overall people, they forget what a wide receiver, what kind of wide receiver T. Higgins is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always look back to when Jamar Chase has missed time, and you project out, and it is even with T. Higgins' bad season this past year. I mean, if you project it out, I think it's up to like 6, 7 games. It's like 15, 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns. It's like when Chase is out, he steps up. He is the dude. He is the guy they go to. And that includes the Joe Mixon Panthers game. I think that left some meat on the bone there. They could have probably just thrown to T a whole bunch, but Joe Mixon's going for 200 yards and 5 touchdowns. Why would we do anything else? The Browns game wasn't great for him. They were trying to get used to everything, and the Browns have always played the Bengals receivers well. Let's be real. I feel like those corners and the defensive scheme, even when they had a terrible defensive coordinator, they got up for those Bengals games, and they played their hardest. I watch them against the Steelers or the Ravens. It's like, oh yeah, Nelson Aguilar just caught a touchdown against them. Against the Bengals, it's like they are press coverage, jamming, running with these guys, playing the best defense you'll ever see. It's okay, sure. I mean, they also have a very big defensive line over offensive line advantage, but just talking about the corners, I think they deserve their credit. I think they played the best out of anybody against these Bengals wide receivers who have been awesome. But yeah, when I look at how the offense goes with Jamar Chase out and T. Higgins in, it doesn't really miss too much. I mean, I've heard the nitpicking about who they've played or how those stats came, or some people get mad that he gets more yards in the second half than the first half, but then they're winning a lot of these games. So it's not like they're down 40. I can only think of the one touchdown against the Browns that was like, that didn't matter. Even that Steelers touchdown. Yeah, it was an awesome dunk. It was a dunk and could have taunted his way.
It was the only highlight from that game.
Yeah, right. Halloween, I remember. It was depressing.
But, not really. They went on a 10-game win streak after that.
Right after. But Halloween night sucked.
Oh, it was terrible. I thought the season was over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got on podcast and we were just like, is it time for the eulogy? But even that Steelers game, some people have like nitpicked like that Steelers. I think that score made it a 2-possession game or maybe even a 8-point game. I can't remember exactly, but it was like 10 points. People talked about it as garbage time. It was like the third quarter. It's not garbage time. Like your rules of garbage time are ridiculous to me. Like down 30 and like everybody has the game off as garbage time to me. Third quarter, there's almost no way it is garbage time unless it's like 45-10. Down 5 scores or something like that. Anyway, that's all just to say, I think T. Higgins is awesome. And I think whenever he has the chance to be the guy in the offense, he has stepped up and been the guy. And it's not just volume stats that are inefficient, thinking of like mid-2000s basketball. Could think of like Corey Maggette. I don't think he's like that, which that reference is going to go over most people's heads are listening. But he was an inefficient shot chucker. I don't think that's him. Like, I don't think they just throw the ball to him a whole bunch and like, yeah, the targets are astronomical and that's how he has 1,600 possible yards. They were third in EPA per play in 2022 when it was just T. Higgins and no Jamar Chase on offense in general. There was a very efficient offense when it's just T. Higgins. Like, I think he can carry a load like that. I don't think Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith do that. And they are the guys that I think most people are going to look to as like, oh, they're in the T. Higgins tier. But to me, that's one reason I have T. Higgins a little higher. And I still think that from the draft, because so many people just draft watch and never watch a guy again. I see it all the time with like who people want in free agency. Javon Kinlaw. But who's that left tackle that went to the Titans and now got Andre Dillard, another one. It's like, we could fix him. Oh, come on. Jeff Stoutland couldn't fix him. Anyway, people just peg him as like this big, he could catch jump balls and that's it. You know, he's a one-trick pony. He's not. He's a nuanced route runner. I think there's still a growing process right now against zone coverage, although I think it's good, especially against Tampa 2. They get him on those in breakers, but sometimes he doesn't settle down exactly where he needs to. But to me, I think he wins leverage. He might not get 5 yards of separation or anything. Jamar Chase also doesn't do that often. They win leverage. They win leverage so that Burrow can put the ball on them. And when you have a skill set like T. Higgins, where I think he might have the best body control in the NFL. Look at the Vikings touchdown. Look at what should have been the Jets touchdown and how his feet and hands are moving differently. He's able to toe tap and that twist to get the ball over the goal line despite falling out of bounds. Nobody does that. I mean, maybe there's one or two other guys, but I'm thinking just for this, let's say about the best body control in the NFL. People sometimes talk about that. Like that's for inaccurate quarterbacks so they can adjust to bad thrown balls. But when you're hyper accurate, like Joe Burrow and these back shoulder balls and be able to put the ball exactly where you want to drop it from a drone drops the ball down perfectly where it needs to be. Extended handoffs, whatever you want to call it. When you can put it exactly where you want to, you can kind of weaponize that. And we see the Bengals do it all the time. Think of the back shoulder fade. Jamar Chase, also amazing body control. T. Higgins, amazing body control. So when that corner is over the top or behind, really, and you put that ball there, and these guys have good tracking, they've got great body control, they can then, Burrow can then weaponize that rather than it just being like, oh, he adjusts to bad balls. It's, I'm going to put this where only he can get it. We talk about it all the time. People talk about it all the time, at least. Only he can get it. But when you honestly do that, and you can put it exactly where only he can get it, and maybe it's high behind him, and he can adjust and make that catch, that's awesome. Like, I think he's a perfect fit with Burrow, even if he's not a perfect fit with Jamar Chase.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Brock Bowers, all together soon on this off. No, I'm just joking. It's the Brock Bowers dream is
What do you
going to
mean?
be.
Gesicki's going for 200 yards a game, man.
He might. Yeah, the Brock Bowers dream will be dead in almost a week. But it was fun, and it gave us a topic of conversation. And the same thing for T. Higgins. I actually love what he said. I know a lot of people are like, what else was he supposed to say? He didn't have to say much, and I thought it was
he could have kept the holdout. He could have just said, like, I asked for a trade or something like that.
And it was very encouraging hearing from him. And look, we're probably going to get the not going to camp, which is you understand it. It just this how it works. It's business. He's probably won't see him in the offseason program, mini camp.
It's literally the Jesse Bates, the client, like the player is like giving up, like, yeah, I'm coming back, guys. Like, he's too nice and too much of a team player.
He's so nice.
Trying to play the other end of like, no, he's never gonna play on the tag. It's I'll probably play this year. Jesse Bates texted Dax Hill trying to work out with him. It's like, stop that.
Here's what's he never unfollowed the Bengals on Instagram like some of these players do and deletes all their photos and like I never played for them. Brandon Ayuk is one of them that did it. I think Debo did it too. It happens all the time, but no, T has been really classy with this, and obviously he's had some funny tweets and things like that, but it's just he you could tell he would love to play for the Bengals. He would love to get, they can't agree on the deal right now. And, I'm always pro player, go get paid. Maybe it's in Cincinnati. I hope T has a wonderful season in 2024 and it ends with a trophy in a Lombardi and they're celebrating in New Orleans, but we'll see what happens there. And health, that's all I care about with these guys. Just stay healthy and we'll see what this offense can do as the Cincinnati Bengals get started in their offseason program. There was some more news or just more player interviews at Paycor Stadium today, and we'll get to that next on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati, day one of the offseason program. The Bengals are kind of starting most of their workouts, their mini camps later in May. I know Joe Burrow, when he talked to Ben Baby a few months ago, that he's expected to be cleared, fully cleared in May. There were reports that he's throwing. He even mentioned to Jeff Hobson from Bengals.com that he's been throwing. Zach Taylor just said everything has been encouraging when talking to the media today. Not a whole lot from that first offseason workout program today, but I'm sure we'll get more notes as the team continues to work out the month of April and minicamp in May. And then obviously rookie minicamp is right around the corner. One of the bigger news stories in free agency, the team brought in safety help. Geno Stone, Von Bell. Love Von Bell. Love that he said that his code was still the same at Paycor Stadium. And I know a lot of people were like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm sure they just had to press the button. And it was pretty crazy, but probably just had to reactivate it. And Von Bell is good to go. Good to see him back in there. I'm excited about the secondary overall. But the biggest question is Dax Hill. Where is Dax Hill going? And one of the things Dax Hill said, and I thought it was encouraging, and look, a lot of players, maybe it's just player talk to the media and it was their first day coming back. But, he was asked about the bringing in the safeties in free agency of Von Bell and Geno Stone, and he said the Bengals front office talked to him about it. He's going to do everything that he needs to do to be on the field. We don't know what that looks like for the secondary. Even when they get into training camp and we're seeing these first team reps on the defensive side of the ball, to be determined on what that looks like for Dax, if they're going to rotate him in. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he's going to be a cornerback now, and we'll see what that looks like. Or maybe he's still going to stay at safety. As every day goes by, it just feels like I don't know what the future holds for Dax Hill. And it's a little disappointing. I don't like the bust conversation because last year was his first year as a starting safety and it was encouraging in a lot of ways. And obviously there's still a learning curve for him. And a lot of guys in the secondary and the defense as a whole had some major issues in all kinds of position groups. But when you think about Dax Hill and kind of the future and just kind of hearing from him today, What are your expectations going forward for him?
I don't really have. We'll see. I don't
Yeah.
know. My opinion, where I've stood, I think it's going to be a four-way, no, three-way safety competition. I think Geno Stone's locked in. They didn't pay him that money to sit,
Mm-hmm.
but Von Bell's on a minimum contract, so they could theoretically play Battle or Hill over him, and playing next to Stone is how all three of those would do their best work. I think Von Bell probably has the upper hand. And then I think my next favorite would be Jordan Battle, and then Dax Hill as the dark horse to win that. I don't think it'd be like crazy odds if I was trying to set this. Like, he wouldn't be the same odds as like Kyler Murray to win MVP or something wild that nobody would see coming. But, more like Brock Purdy to win MVP. I don't know. He almost did it.
And he understood.
Yeah. Justin Herbert with this Los Angeles Chargers team to win MVP. You can make the narrative, I guess. if he gets the number one seed, maybe you have to consider it. I mean,
You
if
know
he's throwing to
what?
Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston.
I can't believe they're about to get Malik Neighbors. I'm still bitter, but
Wait,
that's a whole nother.
so they might. They could go anywhere, huh? They could go Bowers, technically.
I don't think they will.
I don't know.
They're gonna go.
Anyway,
they're gonna go JJ. No, I'm joking.
Joe Alt. Anyway, so I think that like that's where I put it, like kind of like that plus 600 if you're a betting person, somewhere around there. I don't know. Maybe someone's gonna yell at me about that. I think Von Bell would be the favorite. I don't think it's a greater than like 50% chance. I think Jordan Bell is really going to push that, and then I think Dax Hill is in the running. I do think if I had to guess, Dax Hill's fit in this defense, it's probably as the backup nickel corner, and maybe they use him as a tight end guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Oh,
my
that's disappointing.
yeah, but that's
But
my
hey,
best guess. There's a lot of bodies out there. I mean, when you and I know people have talked a lot about all these different crazy ideas they have. It's just I had those thoughts when they drafted Dax Hill, and he didn't really see the field much. So maybe you make the case that but now he's ingrained in the I think Lou just doesn't love doing that. I think he likes keeping Jermaine Pratt on the field. I think he likes having a four-man rush. I think he likes a lot of reasons that you don't bring a third safety, or in this case could be even a fourth safety, onto the field very often. He loves Mike Hilton. Why would he bench Mike Hilton to bring on Dax Hill in his mind? And maybe in your mind you're saying like he's more athletic or something, but like Mike Hilton, heart and soul of the defense. I can see why they don't. And they did that in the Ravens game, and they got smoked a little bit, made the change. Mike Hilton's back in after halftime. They stepped up. They slowed him down, stopped him in that playoff game. That was the Hubbard Yard Dash. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of where I'm a little down on it. I would love to be pleasantly surprised. I think he has the highest potential in the secondary, and we'll see if he could reach it. I think some people have talked a lot about like, oh, he's a slot corner and whatever. The one thing I have some trepidation about is the idea that, oh, he's moved to slot corner and then next year he's the heir, because that will
no.
be his fourth year in the league, and he's going to just take over that spot without, I mean, we'll see Mike Hilton health related. He's just supposed to take over that spot based off his college film from 5 years ago. That would have me a little nervous. And I think it would have the Bengals nervous that they would probably bring somebody in, or at least have a big competition. Like everyone keeps talking about, they might draft that Mike Sainristil guy from Michigan, who's like a Mike Hilton clone, kind of. Watched him, loved him. Don't know how to value it too much, because I'm like, most slot corners, you find them a little later, but at some point you just kind of go like, hey, he's a good player. Like, why are we doing this? Positional value context. If they draft him, like what is the thing? Just trade him. Just trade Dax Hill at that point. Like if that's your idea, unless he wins a job, I think he could win that safety job. So that's where I am. If I had to guess, his fit is tight end guy and backup slot defender.
Look, at the end of the day, this could be a positive outcome. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, no, you wasted a first rounder on him. It was a late first rounder. And at the same time, if he can still add to this defense in the secondary in some way, it could be a positive. Obviously, there's plenty to talk about other position groups on the defensive side of the ball, but the secondary was very concerning last year. I still feel like it's all connected to the pressure they're getting up front from the defensive line, and it was really only Trey Hendrickson, and you're expecting more. And their pick at 18 could be defensive help. You want to see more Miles Murphy out there. We don't know what Sam Hubbard's time's going to look like. He's obviously still going to start, but when is Miles Murphy going to be on the field? When you get a guy like Von Bell, Geno Stone in your secondary, all of that sounds fun with the experience. And Geno Stone is still pretty young on the defensive side of the ball, but obviously what he was able to do with the Baltimore Ravens on a pretty loaded defense last year is encouraging. I try to look at it in a positive way, but one of the conversations I hear is, oh, you should, and I know you mentioned it, you should trade Dax Hill, or, the outcome could be trading Dax Hill if there isn't a spot for him on this defense. Well, what are you going to get for him? Just one season as a starter.
Yeah. Who knows? What is the market for a guy like that? Like a third, fourth? I don't know.
And I wouldn't even, this might sound crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals added another year onto Mike Hilton.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm with that. Yeah, I could see that 100%. He has a good year. They can give him a 1-year extension. They love him.
Yeah. Like a Trey Hendrickson vibe, extension wasn't up. And he's like, you know what? Let's go ahead and add one more year to this. And why not?
Yeah, right there with you. I think that is 100% possible. And honestly, probably like higher odds than you think. It's kind of how I felt about the Joe Mixon's not getting cut, and he might actually have another year, which I guess didn't happen, but he did get traded and get extended somewhere.
Yeah.
It's certainly possible. And we'll see if he's still good. Like, why would you be mad about it? Just because you're wasting draft picks? Like, this guy was drafted to be a safety, and I assume we can always talk about DJ Turner. I think they've shown, if you're reading the tea leaves, we'll have to see the draft. So far, I think they've put some faith in him.
Really? Because the last mock draft from their own beat writer was they're taking a corner at 18. Nate Wiggins.
We'll see.
Is that smoke?
Nate Wiggins is pretty much DJ Turner. I mean, I haven't watched, but when you look at like his athletic profile he has shorter arms than DJ Turner, and like that's the biggest flaw with DJ Turner. Like, what are we? He can't reach the ball sometimes when he tries to extend out and knock it down. Like, that's going to be Nate Wiggins. He's going to have that issue too, probably.
I think Butch is he's doing some smokescreen stuff out here, because you remember what happened with Frank Ragnall, the center that they really wanted in the draft, and I'm sure other teams heard, hey, Cincinnati's planning on drafting him, and then they jumped ahead of them and they were able to, or maybe they didn't even jump ahead of him, they just drafted him, and that was the year that the Bengals drafted Billy Price, correct?
Yeah,
that's really
I think if anything is like taking you down the Billy Price path, it is probably just to bring that up, it is probably offensive line again. They've brought in all those offensive tackles, and to me, this is very unlikely, but actually, there's a way this could happen. If Amarius Mims doesn't pass like an injury physical for them, which I'm sure they give that to everybody. That's why they brought him in for a top 30, I would think. And also because he doesn't have very many snaps, so they want to get an up close look at him, get Frank and get an up close look at him. What I would say is just, let's say Amarius Mims doesn't pass the physical. They don't like Johnny Newton because he didn't pass his physical. Yeah. And to them, they want to select an offensive tackle and like the best available to them, because maybe they see Fontenot or Fuaga as a guard. That's also possible. And they want to tackle, because this is a team that historically has valued tackle much more than guard. I think the Billy Price pick would be like a Tyler Guyton of like, we just need a right tackle. And he played right tackle, and he's athletic and he's young. And it's like all true. And he would get to sit for a while. And I would still be worried about it, because there's a long way to go, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. There's a couple more things I want to talk about with offensive linemen. It's probably going to go into our Wednesday episode, but we'll get to that next on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. You brought up offensive linemen. There is so much to talk about with offensive linemen, because the closer we get, it feels trenches for the Cincinnati Bengals, honestly, for the last month or so. Brock Bowers' dream was always a lot of fun. Maybe they go cornerback. We've talked about that before. It could be a total Cincinnati Bengals move. The closer we get, I think my dream pick is Byron Murphy II. I don't think he's going to be there, or maybe there's just a lot of NFL draft hype or fatigue of where we're at with prospects. He would be my dream on the defensive side of the ball, but offensive side of the ball, I agree with you. I hope the Cincinnati Bengals have this mindset. I know how fans feel. Protect Joe Burrow. That is the number one thing. That is the most important thing. We don't know how many games they're going to get out of Trent Brown, and obviously he's getting older. You're going to get one season out of him. Hopefully 13 or 14 games, if not more. I would love more.
I would
You
set the over under at 10.5.
What we talked about it. You 10 and
Mhm.
a half, and let us pick the games. And then you look at the offensive lineman as a whole. My biggest thing is put the best 5 guys out there. If you see somebody at 18 and he might not be the best right tackle, but he fits another position on your offensive line as a guard, and all the other players on your draft board are gone. Byron Murphy the second. Maybe you don't feel good about Johnny Newton in his physical. You move over to the offensive line side of the ball because your dream cornerback is gone. Your tight end, Brock Bowers, is gone. And you say, you know what? We're going to go offensive lineman, but we don't feel strong with him at right tackle, but he would be a great guard. And interior help all day. The future Alex Cappa will be gone soon. You look at the center position and Ted Karras, and then just overall the competition with Cordell Volson at left guard. So I think that could be a positive. I do not want the Cincinnati Bengals to get into a Billy Price situation again of not going BPA with your offensive lineman overall.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a chance that Troy Fontenot is your best offensive lineman available, but they see him as a left guard. And where do you go with that? He's played left guard. I think we need to chill on the idea like he only played a couple games. Like all you want to know is that he can do it. And I think the traits match up too. He's really, really smart. I think out of all the guys I watched this year, I categorized him as the smart. It makes sense. He's the oldest, but he is the most ready. Like he's the smartest. I think he understands leverage the best, angles the best. He's kind of a little bit of a rare mover. And all that adds up to what I think is going to be an all-pro ceiling guard. And nobody has this. They talk, was it Vinny Curry, who was like a giant bust? Like he had the bust proof, whatever else. Like nobody's bust proof. Marvin Harrison Jr. could bust, and I haven't watched him, but I assume most people are like, that's insane. It's happened. It's happened. Yeah. The number one wide receiver, he's busted before. Sammy Watkins was like not generational, let me use that term too much, but he was a really, really, really high end wide receiver prospect. And he was just an insane person off the field. He thought he was a lizard man. And I also read, no, okay. I need to tell 2 stories. There's this article. It's awesome. And it goes into Sammy Watkins. One, he partied with like he had all those foot injuries in Buffalo. He would go out to the club with the boot on.
Oh, I believe that.
and he would miss all of like his like those things are why prospects bust sometimes. Like he'd go out to the club with the boot on, and then he'd miss the getting his rehab the next day. And also Coach Andy Reid got the most out of him. And they told a story, and it was we're late in the podcast, nobody's listening, but this is an awesome story. I love this. One of my favorite NFL stories I've ever heard. Sammy Watkins' eyes went to the back of his head, and he started making some noises or something at the locker room, and Andy Reid went like, "Who you talking to, Sammy?" He said, "The lizard god," or something like that. And he said, "What's he saying?" He played along with it. And that's why Sammy Watkins won on an inside release go against Richard Sherman in the Super Bowl that set up Andy Reid's first Super Bowl victory. He talks, that's a player's coach. It doesn't look down on the lizard god.
I can appreciate Andy Reid even more, but I'm gonna search. When we finish recording, I'm just gonna search it on Twitter because that's where I can find everything. And if I see one sentence with the connection there, I'm retweeting it for no random reason at all. And
I gotta find it.
Nobody will understand unless they're listening.
It's years old. It is years old. Like it's not a recent article. Anyway, what were we even talking? Oh,
this is where we're at when we're ready for the NFL draft just to get here. But we'll have more. We'll have more on Wednesday's podcast. More offensive lineman possibilities. But I agree with you. Just kind of overall, you just be smart when it comes to that pick. Obviously the pressure is out there. Get a right tackle. You need a right tackle. It's so extremely important. Yeah, you need tackle. You need a swing tackle. You need more help on your offensive line. But if you can get just one season out of Trent Brown, and someone could tell me right now they're going to have a really good left guard in place of someone who I wanted to see more from in the interior, and it just wasn't good enough. Sign me up. Put your best 5 guys out there.
Where does Trey Smith and Landon Dickerson, where do they go in a redraft? They go round 1, right? Like we talk so much about like, oh, you need to, or not we, but there are a lot of people, as a collective, we when it comes to the draft, people talk about like in the first round, you can only take offensive tackle, wide receiver, corner, quarterback. It's like limit yourself. And first off, when you draft outside the top like 5, I think that kind of goes a little bit out the window. Like you don't want to take a running back with the 3rd overall pick,
Nope.
but if the guy hits, like Quentin Nelson was what a top 5 pick, he hit. Like especially early in his career, nobody was going, "Oh, what a dumb pick." They could have gotten this offensive tackle, who's worse, but it's a more valuable position. Like nobody listens to you. I mean, you start doing that. If you draft a guy and he ends up a guard, but he ends up a really good guard with the 18th pick, people are gonna look back on that and go like, "That's a hit." Like I wish we did that. Like if you redraft that draft with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, they probably both go in the 1st round.
I'm still annoyed. I'm still annoyed about that draft. You know what? That draft, and I don't want to make it about the Super Bowl or anything like that, but that they could have won a Super Bowl. They could have won a Super Bowl. It's one of those smart decisions in not getting Jackson Carman.
They would have maximized and really went after Joe Thuney, maybe. I don't know.
I'm really
I was thinking because it was
the
left guard that beat Aaron Donald, and Joe Thuney's one of the only guys I've seen hold up against Aaron Donald, at least a little bit.
Do you remember like all of the maybe we were ready for the season, but the free agency talk was Joe Thuney's sister's brother's friend says that the Bengals.
Yeah, I never followed and bought into that. I am not the type to be like, I need the most up-to-date information now. I honestly was going to that thinking like they're probably not signing Joe Thuney, and this is false hope. If it happens, awesome. If it doesn't, I'm ready for that because that's what I'm expecting. People got real mad when Matt Filer signed with the Chargers. Matt Filer stunk with the Chargers. Like the Bengals fans were like so ready for competent guard play. And maybe Matt Filer was all right, but I remember when I watched him, I was like, yeah, this is not what I would want to pay money to bring over here. Like Quentin Spain was better, I think, and they got Quentin Spain for cheaper. So.
Look, I'm just telling you, you get that interior help. And if your right tackle isn't there, if your tackle isn't there, then do it. Then do it. Get your best players on the field to protect your franchise quarterback. And maybe you do have to go to the defensive side of the ball because a better defensive player. The Bengals are still in a good position of a BPA in this draft, and I hope they realize that and they do not mess it up. But overall, I mean, at the end of the day, they're probably just going to get JC Latham.
Still predicting it, although a lot of analysts are trying to say he's going to go higher, and we'll see. I feel like not testing and whatever else, like that turns some teams off, but it does not turn the Bengals off as far as I know. All right. We're near the end.
We're there, but
we will get the end. But can I?
Yeah.
I have an article coming this week, and I'm just going to toss a nuclear hot take because of who it's about. I think there's a wide receiver that I'd be willing to take at 18, and it is not Brian Thomas Jr.
Ooh, how about you just
likely that? Like not Rome Odunze, not Malik Neighbors, not Marvin Harrison Jr. Like not doing a Brock Bowers like workaround like a real wide receiver. I think I'd take him at 18. I don't know if he'd be BPA, but like if you wanted to go weapons, and I don't like any of these offensive linemen, then I got a guy. That I am like I feel like this is who people talk about Brian Thomas Jr. being. I see him as he's kind of more put together and he's there and still has the awesome athleticism and has everything that Thomas brings.
Is this coming out this week?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Are you going to tell the player or are you just going to wait for people to wait for the article to come out?
We're late enough.
Go ahead.
I love Adonai Mitchell from Texas.
Okay.
Love. He is half an inch shorter than Brian Thomas Jr. Same weight, same tested athleticism, both 99 percentile athletes, shows up on the field, and I think he's more put together. Like Brian Thomas Jr. basically only ran hitch, go, and maybe some over routes once in a while, like very bare bones route tree. And it makes sense why he's not a nuanced or very good route runner right now with room to grow. Like I don't think he's stiff or anything, but Adonai Mitchell can run these routes already. And he has that same deep speed and he moves really well. He has the body control. Like I remember I was watching and I know there's some effort concerns, but if you could talk yourself into, we can look past those. I don't think he'll be my BPA. Like I think I like Amarius Mims, even though I have him in the same tier. Like I would still take Mims over him, despite the injuries and everything else. And I would take Olu Fashanu and Brock Bowers and a couple of guys like that. But I would take him over. I'd probably take him over Latham. I'd probably take him, or at least he's in that tier. And if you get to the point where like some of these guys have failed medicals, like I talked about, like that's one thing. The reason they might pass on Newton or Mims or whoever is they just didn't pass the medicals, or maybe they failed the personality when they brought him in. They didn't like think he was culture fit, similar to Tiger Tart. If that's the case, and you're looking at the draft and you're going like, okay, who's next on the board? I gave Adonai Mitchell a first round grade because I think that it's there. I think he has the potential to be a dude, and it'll be pretty fun for the 1 year that him, Higgins, and Chase get to play together.
All that just for him to go to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Absolutely possible. Or the Jags, the pick before.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the Jags are just going to reach for a wide receiver and not I would
Xavier Worthy. I think he's actually all right. Like I thought I was going to hate Xavier Worthy.
Well, another one.
A second round grade, but like he ran a 4.21, so he'll go in the first round. I don't want the Bengals to do it, but
no. But like if you're picking 31 or 32, it's almost like
Dolphins. Dolphins are 100% taking Xavier Worthy, right?
Could you imagine?
They value speed more than everybody else. Like it makes sense in my head to be like, yeah, they're probably just gonna take him. They have a late first in the range. Somebody take him first.
No, I'm so pumped. I'm so excited. We have one more podcast this week and a couple more next week as we get ready for the NFL draft. It feels like it has been a million years away, and I'm so pumped about it. It's some of my favorite days in football, and I cannot wait until we get there. But we'll have more this week. Mike is going to have that great article. Make sure you check it out over on All Bengals. Also, make sure you're following Mike, Bengals_Sands. A lot of good breakdowns for some of these college prospects that will get you ready for the NFL draft. And as always, thank you for listening, too. It's always game day in Cincinnati.